Hello and welcome. Tampa Bay Buccaneers drop a game to the San Francisco 49ers. And it's a little bit disappointing because of the way that it happened, right? Because it felt like a game that the Buccaneers were right in the midst of snatching and a victory they could have actually stole. And at the same time, it's not that disappointing when you actually think about the fact that pretty much nobody expected the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to come away with a win in this one. And as a result, they did not, and it's not overly surprising. So it shouldn't be that disappointing. Big takeaways from this game, it was a game of adjustments. San Francisco 49ers, halftime adjustments, check in the box, they get an A+. 13 points scored in the first half, and the Niners came out in the third quarter and put up 14 unanswered. And that was really the game. To the credit of the Bucs and their defense, they did adjust, really stepped it up and played much better in the fourth quarter. But that third quarter was so explosive, and it put the Bucs in too much of a hole that they could not scratch themselves and dig themselves out of. Once they were down, they just couldn't really come back. And those 14 unanswered points, that was the game. San Francisco, they show you why they're who they are, right? They're a Super Bowl contending team, and there's a reason for that. Another big takeaway is injuries, right? Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Jamel Dean, he's been bit by the injury bug all season. Happens again in this game. He's been banged up this year. In this game, he leaves with a ankle injury is what they called it, and he did not return to the game. It was on a play, unfortunately, where he let up a touchdown pass. Lavonte David, groin injury, also did not return to the game. Disappointing because Lavonte David is, obviously one of the better players on the defense, one of the better players on your team. Tristan Wirfs also sustaining an injury in this game, though. Seems to be an ankle injury, though he was able to return to the game, so you would think that maybe his injury is a little bit less serious or something that he could fight through. Obviously something to monitor throughout the week. Big takeaways on offense. Talked about this. Mr. Bucs Nation and I talked about this on the Mr. Bucs Nation podcast. We talked about Baker Mayfield. I feel like he's kind of playing at his peak this season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this game was kind of more of what we've seen, right? Baker Mayfield is going to give you opportunities, going to make a couple plays, he's going to put the ball in some good spots, and he's also going to have a play here or there, play or two, where it's head scratching. It's not good. And you're like, what was that? And those plays came Baker Mayfield against admittedly, a good defense, good front, good linebacker, just a good team and a good defense. But Baker Mayfield had 2 interceptions he threw today that were dropped, both with defenders undercutting routes, actually both thrown to Mike Evans as well. And they should have been 2 balls that should have been picked off. Bad decisions, bad read, bad throw, everything about it. Not good. Bad play. Twice. Just won't show up on the stat sheet, but happened twice. We saw it. We know what happened. Those plays are the plays that, you wish Baker Mayfield could kind of take out of his game. But then you have plays like his touchdown pass to Mike Evans, which is a great play. You have a couple scramble plays in there where Baker Mayfield is able to extend the play and make something happen. You have Baker Mayfield throwing a strike to Raheem Jarrett late in the game, a dart. You have Baker Mayfield with another dart to K. Dot, and that should have been a touchdown later in the game as well, which could have given the Buccaneers not the lead or even the tie, but an opportunity to potentially get the stop and then drive down the field at the end of the game in a 1-score game. K. Dot, of course, dropped that pass. And that was pretty disappointing because K. Dot, I think, is an underrated player for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but you got to have those. When you're a receiving tight end and you're not necessarily a great blocker and you're not necessarily you're not the type of tight end, K. Dot's not an explosive athlete at the tight end position. He's a sure-handed catcher of the football. When that is your role on the team, you must execute in that role. And Baker Mayfield puts the ball in the money in the end zone, you're open. You gotta just pull it. You gotta secure that catch, right? That's game on the line. Once K. Dot kind of drops that ball, maybe you already didn't think the Buccaneers were going to come back and win that game, but right after K. Dot drops that ball, you're like, wow, that's kind of the nail in the coffin because then Baker Mayfield throws a pick right after that off of a tip. So that changes the game. And it may not have been right. It's not a game-leading or a game-winning potential catch, but it is a game-altering potential catch that wasn't made. So big takeaways for me. Adjustments. The Buccaneers did not adjust until it was too little too late. on the defensive end. And then offensively, the Buccaneers, the last couple games, they get in a groove, right? They're able to move the ball. The run game has been a little bit better. The offensive line is protecting Baker Mayfield better, much better than they were at the beginning of the season. Rashad White's getting a little more. It seems like the run game has. It's not reliable by any means, but it's gotten a little bit more improved, a little bit steady Eddie, just a little bit small steps forward. And the offensive line is getting less penalties to their credit. I know Luke Gadecki did get flagged with a holding penalty later in the game, but that's an improvement. Offensive line was not the issue today in a matchup where they easily could have been the issue. They were not the issue. Mike Evans gets in the end zone. I think he had 5 catches for 40 or so yards. So-so game. It just feels like the Buccaneers were kind of in a groove on offense, but just overmatched. I do think the last couple games the Buccaneers have found a little bit of a groove on offense. Tampa's defense is just really hot and cold, right? They have good moments, they have bad moments. They just having a hard time finding their touch this season. But ultimately, the Buccaneers lose the game, and yes, it's disappointing in the way they lost, but it's a game you expected them to lose. So it's not overly surprising. On to next week against a I'll just say it's a more winnable game next week.